Yeah, Thursday, 28th. Yep. Community Justice Center, that's all. Oh, cancel Comox Valley Hospital.
Okay.
No.
Okay, I think we're ready to get started here. Welcome to today's Recreation Commission meeting. We'll begin by respectfully acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. The first item today is unfinished business. We have a verbal update regarding delegation from Peter Dutton concerning the Comox Valley Indoor Multi-Sport Tennis Facility. Can I have a motion for receipt, please? And over to staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Jennifer Zabinden, our Senior Manager of Recreation Facilities Services, will provide this verbal update on the delegation about tennis. So, Jennifer.
Thank you. Through the chair. So the tennis presentation was received as information by the Rec Commission on May 23rd, 2023. The Recreation Commission suggested the presenter pull together further data and information that can be utilized by the Rec Commission for future analysis for potential courts. No further discussions were held beyond the presentation. Staff did connect with the presenter on that day, and they had suggested that they were not the ones that wanted to put together that amount of information. And so currently staff do have a full portfolio working through the Rec Commission strategic priorities. And so the goal was that staff will be circling back to indoor sport floor activities at the point in time when the sports center pool may be decommissioned as part of the process of working through the Rec Commission strategic priorities.
Thanks for that. That makes good sense. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the report? Director Hillian. Oops.
Thanks, Chair. Woo, thanks, Chair. I just want to express appreciation to staff for just the acknowledgement. It did seem that we had kind of left the whole thing hanging. And I think it makes sense. It's the same conversation that I've had with some representatives from this organization that it's at the point where we look at indoor sports and the possible decommissioning of the old pool that this I think would become front and center. And I really appreciate that staff has that on their radar as a future initiative. Thanks.
Thanks for that comment. And seeing no one to their lights on, we'll vote on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? That's carried. And then the next item under unfinished business is the resolution status report. Could I get a motion for receipt? And are there any questions or comments about any of the items included in the report? Oh. Do you want to review them or? Yeah. Go ahead, Director Jolicoeur.
Thanks, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, through the chair, my question to staff on item 6, specifically wondering if there's a timeline that we'll have something formalized with the city, and if that timeline is going to be in alignment with the CVRD budget and the city budget cycle.
Thanks. Thank you, Director. And Doug DeMarzo, General Manager of Community Services, can provide an update on the on that particular item around a municipal facility support agreement. Doug?
Sorry, Doug.
Thank you, through the chair. I think this item was kind of aligned with rec grant as well, and you can correct me if I'm not remembering that correctly, but there's a number of pieces around their whole rec grant coming together in the next 6 to 8 months, or perhaps a little more, that would help understand the facility support agreement and whether it stays within the rec grant function or looks at other avenues. So some of that is the City of Courtenay's decision around the pool, a little bit of the next item, which is around the Regional Park Service and where, and if appropriate, where larger asks from groups also come in to think whether they belong in the rec grant process still, or whether they belong in another service, which could be a regional park service or back into recreation. So there's still a number of items, and we think it might be premature to deliver this approach before those are contemplated fully. And at that point, we'll have a better understanding of both those needs for the municipal facility supports, as well as some other clear direction on some of the other needs of other partners that are also related to recreation grants.
Thanks for that. Did you have a subsequent?
Yeah, if that's okay, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to be clear, from my recollection from the motion itself and from our conversation was specifically wanting to remove the pool from the grant process that is the existing process for how the CVRD engages with financial funding for that, and to move it over to a municipal facility agreement, which would support sustainable and supportive planning from a financial perspective, both for the CVRD, but also for the city. And so I guess more specifically, my question is there a timeline that's been established for that to happen? And is it planned to be done before we come to a place where we need to vote on our budget?
Currently, the city of Courtenay is undertaking a review of the outdoor pool, both from facility capital investment in the future, as well as looking at the future operations of that pool. So I guess the timing would be in conjunction with City of Courtenay staff. Once they report out to the City of Courtenay on those options, once there's clarity on the path forward, that would help determine the length of the term of agreement and the potential support, which would then determine whether rec grant would still be the appropriate place if there's another avenue to pursue. So I suppose in short, we will continue to discuss this and, outline the process forward with the city with regards to the pool, but we'll be waiting on an answer from the City of Courtenay with regards to the future of the pool and the capital improvements, which are both underway in studies with the city right now.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Director Kerr.
Thanks, Chair. I have a question about number 7, but as it relates to sorry, that's the cricket pitch, and that relates to number 5 on the agenda, the function 603. So I don't know if it would be easier to kind of talk about those both together later, or if now would be the right time. Sure. That was okay.
Sure, I think that's okay. And between Doug and Jennifer, it'd be fine to.
Okay. If we want to chat more about the details of 603, that's fine. Just as it relates to that report, I don't see in the graphic and appendix B on page 6 a location for the cricket pitch, and I was just thinking about how that would integrate into an artificial field if the intent is to put the strip with the artificial field on one side and the grass field on the other. That'd be just an interesting alignment, and especially since the artificial field would get so much use. So I was just kind of curious more about the alignment and where exactly that's planned to be. Thanks.
Over to you, Jennifer.
Through the chair. So at this time, staff just recently met with the user groups and the consultant last night. And one of the thoughts for the cricket pitch is actually, so as you come up the driveway up to the school on the right-hand side, there's the 2 grass soccer fields. When you get to the top of that hill on the right-hand side, that's where the all-weather field is going to be. But below that, there's the two quite nice grass soccer fields. And right now, the discussion point is to potentially put the cricket field between those 2 grass fields, so it doesn't encroach onto the all-weather field. And obviously, when cricket uses that area, they would have to book both fields because their range around the pitch would be over both grass fields.
Thanks for that. Did you want to add anything? Great. Okay. In that case, seeing no other lights, we'll vote on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? Oh, yeah. Thanks, Director Arbor. Seeing none. That's carried. And on to reports. We have the 2023 Recreation Grant additional funding requests from United Riders of Cumberland. Could I get a motion for receipt, please? And over to staff.
Thanks. And Doug, you'll be introducing the staff report on the request.
Thank you through the chair. Before I start the presentation, I'd just like to acknowledge that Adam Spiegel and Dougal from UROC are on the line and will be providing a brief update of the details of this request. But essentially, they were at the board in May and to discuss their 25,000 funding that they've received from Rec Grant as they requested for an additional 25,000. And another piece since that time was the rural community grants contributed additional money, bringing it to a total of, well, 39,500, which will be about 10,500 short of their request. Therefore, Adam and or Dougal will just give a quick update as a reminder of what their request was and some of the pertinent facts. And then it's for information for this Rec Commission to consider.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions around that or want to move the discussion forward? There's a few options outlined. I think Dougal or Adam.
Yeah, so I can just pipe in if you'd like. I just want to express our gratitude for the additional funding and support that we received earlier this year from the CVRD. It's gone a long ways to us being able to continue to deliver the important service that we provide to the residents of the Comox Valley. As you will recall from the first presentation delegation we sent, we provide an important amenity and management service. And we continue to offer that service to the community. But as you'll recall from the original presentation, we continue to see increased pressure on the services we provide as a result of the growing passion that people have for outdoor recreation and specifically trails. So yeah, our intent is to continue to deliver a high quality service to the communities within the Comox Valley, and to do so, there is increased funding pressure, and as a result, we still are requiring $50,000, which is the ask. So we're closer to that figure now that we've received the additional support in the spring, but we're still there is still a shortfall of about $11,000, which is why we're here today.
Thanks for providing that context. Did Dougal want to provide any additional information or? Okay, thanks. Just wondering if the board has any questions around the ask or if there's any discussion. I see Director Jolicoeur just put up his hand, but I've lost him off the Zoom screen.
I'm here. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I guess a question for staff more so. I'm not seeing an attached presentation from the proponent. I'm hearing that there is a presentation that was done to the board, but I'm wondering if there's some context here that can be provided beyond what's just been shared around some funding shortfalls and the costs related to some of the work that the proponent does in the community. I'm wondering if staff can speak to that, if there's some further context for us to have for deliberation.
Thanks, Director. The UROC did present to the Recreation Commission, or sorry, the board back in May, and so there was some information presented at that time. We'd have to go back to pull that attachment from the minutes to provide you with any kind of material. But I think between Adam and Dougal, maybe you could provide a bit more context on what that service is that you're providing to the community. And
yeah, for sure. Thanks for the opportunity. So I guess just to summarize, we manage over 200 kilometers of multi-use trails. And these trails overlap a number of boundaries. The trails are all on private forest lands, as well as the Cumberland Community Forest lands, which yeah, it's approximately a total area of 6,500 acres. And we continue to see increased pressure, as I've alluded to. This past year, there was, 2022, there was over 220,000 visits to these trails. And we continue to see growth in usership of approximately 20% year over year. And that trend has continued for the last approximately 5 years. So this isn't just a new trend. This isn't just a COVID spike. This is ongoing pressure. We continue to look to different forms of revenue to share and find a shared solution to the funding problem. So we continue to seek funding from the Village of Cumberland as well as the Regional District. We continue to look for funding from our members, of which we're currently sitting at approximately 2,300 active members who've all paid membership dues this year. So that's a very significant number, as you can see. We look to corporate sponsors for support, as well as generating revenue through our own internal activities, programming, races and events, as well as merchandise sales. We have a trail crew that maintains the trails. There's approximately 6 employees of UROC right now. So we're supporting the employment of people within this community. And yeah, there is obviously a significant cost to doing this and to ensure that those trails are not only maintained to a high standard for a improved user experience, but also because of the risk and liability associated with not maintaining those trails. And the underpinning of the management service we provide is the land access agreement that we hold. And that's a tri-party agreement. That's United Riders of Cumberland, Mosaic, and Manulife Asset Management. And the underpinning of that agreement is the transfer of liability and the insuring of those trails. Our insurance costs have escalated significantly, as I think anyone who has had any experience with insurance over the last few years can attest to. So as a result, yeah, just increased use pressure and increased cost pressure. So yeah, there is a presentation slide deck that we prepared back in May. Evan and any other directors, happy to circulate that to you after this, if you'd like, and you can take a look into some of the finer details of our presentation from back in May.
Thanks for that additional information and context. We have another question from Director Kerr. I can make this. Yeah, I'm pressing the button. It's just not working.
Yeah, that's working.
Weird. Okay.
Thanks, Chair. Adam, thanks for that summary. That was really good. Just curious about with the increase in your passionate membership, what the other revenue possibilities are for you. I mean, is it increased membership dues? Are you seeing an increase in revenue through growth or through increased membership dues? And then also have your sponsorships with all of your members and some of them having businesses or ties to local businesses. Are you seeing an increase in sponsorship? So just curious about this shortfall this year. What other avenues you've been able to go down in terms of generating revenue or sponsorship money? Thanks.
Yeah, so as I've alluded to, it's a shared solution that we see as being what we're trying to achieve here. And so we continue to see growth in membership. We've really wanted to ensure that trails and membership are accessible to all folks of all economic capacity in this community. And so we've held membership dues static for a number of years now. Membership, I think, is still $30. And so, yeah, from accessibility perspective, we haven't increased the per ticket item cost membership. However, we have grown the membership, so total revenue from membership has grown. We have seen sponsorship growth in terms of dollars and in kind. However, given that we are heading into more challenging economic times, it is harder and harder to encourage businesses in our community to part with those hard-earned dollars. We continue to see some growth in merchandise sales. Events are an important component of our revenue streams, as well as some of our programming. Although, albeit I will mention that programming generally doesn't generate much in the way of profit for us. A lot of those activities are taking important priorities for our organization, whether it be encouraging some underserved or underrepresented groups in our community to participate in outdoor recreation, youth, for example, etc. And then third-party events have continued to offer a kind of a growing revenue stream for us. And that's third-party events that are contributing a portion of their earned revenue from using the trails. A bit of an acknowledgement of the impact that those events have on the trails, and then the the resources that we have to then allocate to making improvements to those trails after the fact. I think I've kind of captured all the different revenue streams. Dougal, do you have anything to add there?
No, you've hit it on the mark there, Adam. But I will mention that there's a multitude of user groups in the network that we see. We see a lot of runners, we see a lot of hikers, we see a lot of bikers. So it's not just biking. And the user groups, our membership is entirely Comox Valley, with a handful of people from out of the valley who are all on the island. And then one or two folks from the mainland who are supporting our great trails. But I really want to highlight that the user group is mainly Comox Valley people, and it's a wide variety of users. So yeah, just to add to all the good words you said there, Adam. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. That's great information to have. I can say that I am a UROC member, and one of the things I most appreciate about the way that the memberships are delivered is the auto renewal. I think a lot of organizations should follow your guys' lead on that, because I think it really does help. You know, a lot of the time people mean to continuously stay active in an organization, but you know, if you don't remember to renew, membership falls off. So I think that's a really great thing that you guys do. And I was curious just to follow up on what Director Kerr was asking about in terms of revenue, because something I notice as a trail user is that these third-party events bring a lot of people to our community, and they also put a lot of wear and tear on the trails, especially when we're having such a dry summer as we just did, that having, you know, a few hundred people head down the same route really does have an impact on the level of erosion and just repair that's needed. And I'm wondering if you have handy just how much of UROC's revenue stream is made up of those third-party contributions that really drive a lot of tourism into our area as well.
Yeah, I can answer to that. So first, about erosion and use of the trails for lots of people over a weekend. We do about 14 events through the year. There's thousands of people use the trails with those events, third-party events, and then the 4 main UROC events. What I try and do is when those events put in their application for which route they want to use, I try and make it varied and different to the last, and I often try and steer people away from trails that have been used in previous events and or used in a different kind of event. For example, a running event or a biking event, they have different ways of eroding a trail. So I try and keep that varied. In terms of maintaining those trails, look, there's 220,000 uses last year. What we are managing is a series of robust, trying to be sustainable trails. and that's all part and parcel of the level of usage. Yes, there is a little bit of erosion from these events, but we've got a really solid trail crew who are making some very sustainable trails and some really, as I say, robust trails. And I think that's improved dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. In terms of the third-party events coming in and spending lots of money in as an economic driver, it's a good benefit that those events are giving the Comox Valley, and we try and, as I say, keep the routes varied so that community users are still able to use the network when an event is happening. The contribution that the third-party events make is sufficient to see a trail through. It's like insurance. If trails withstand the use of the event, all well and good. But if a trail doesn't withstand good use of events, then that money will pay for that maintenance of the trail. But we also ask those third-party events to have contingency plans if we have bad weather or a big rainstorm or some sort of condition that would cause problems for the trails. We ask them to have an alternative route that we can put them onto roads or put them onto more robust trails, so that we're not trashing the trails. I'm quite strong about that. I don't want to get the trails ruined. So lots of considerations, lots of things of protecting the trails and protecting the expense of maintenance of the trails. And it all works quite well.
Thanks for that.
I have piggyback on that. Sorry, just one additional thing. The landowners are concerned about fire risk as well at the same time as the same season as erosion due to dry weather conditions and dry trails. So they've requested that no events be permitted during majority of July and August. So that has kind of rectified any concerns, I think, from that perspective around putting people on the trails in the driest season. And then as well, in terms of conservation and protection of certain species, there is the toad migration that takes place every year at a slightly different time, but generally early in July. Again, looking to avoid conflict between users and the migrating toads would mean that we would not be permitting events at that same period of time. So yeah,
Thanks.
really kind of looking to weigh kind of all of the different I guess interests that there are within the forest and the trails.
Yeah, thanks. There's a lot to manage with so many users and the different types of years and all the environmental considerations. So thanks for the additional information. And I've got a question from Director Cole Hamilton here.
Great, thanks very much, Chair. I just wanted to get a little bit more information following up a bit on what Director Kerr was asking about just funding sources. I'm just wondering what other large sort of institutional funders there are besides the RD. I'm trying to recall if you have funding from the Comox Valley Community Foundation or from the Village of Cumberland. And I also just, as we consider the increased ask, I was wondering if you could just remind me what your total annual budget is.
Yeah, we do get funding from the Village of Cumberland to the tune of $13,000 a year, and then a contract money of about $10,000 where we go out and do work for them on their lands. So it's work for the money there. So we see about $13,000 from them. We did have a conversation with the Village of Cumberland about upping that number a little bit, and we'll see where that goes. The ask for additional funding. UROC until about 4 years ago, UROC was touching in many different areas of trying to find funding, but not really sort of going in all feet, as it were. And with the appointment of myself and a really active board, we've pushed a little bit harder on trying to find more funding from different various streams. And that's come with the increase of users, with climate change affecting the trails in some way, in more ways. maintenance being required more so. And we can't stop these users going in and using the network. There's no closed gates or means to shutting down the trails. So when we get 220,000 uses a year, we can bank on next year being more. And with increasing costs of everything, it's just a given that we need to go and seek other ways of finding funding. We don't get funding from the other party that you mentioned. Sorry, I don't recall what it was, but we don't get any funds from them.
It was the Comox Valley Community Foundation.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay, and just the other final question I have is just what your total budget is annually?
Yeah,
for 2023?
Our base costs for running the organization through a year is in and around the $240,000.
All right, thanks very much.
Yeah, those are operating costs, and then there are other sources of capital project funding that we've been receiving, and that's generally through grants. And so previously the Rural Dividend Grant supported some of our capital projects. 4VI has been actively funding some capital projects. We continue to look for other streams of grant funding from the federal and provincial governments. But really where the challenge is with operational funding, like any not-for-profit. And that's where we've looked to building a solid foundation every year from our partners in the regional district and in the village of Cumberland.
Great, thanks, Adam and Diggle. I'll leave it for now as I see there are other speakers waiting.
And Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to mention that at the Union of BC Municipalities conference last week, I met Louise Peterson, who's the Executive Director of the Outdoor Recreation Council of BC. I see that United Riders are actually a member, but I'm not sure if you're aware that they have a new $10 million endowment fund that they're going to be launching in the spring with grants for recreational groups. And it seems to me that if there isn't any more money forthcoming from this body, who knows, maybe there's something that staff will pull a rabbit out of a hat. But that might be an excellent venue for you to make an application, and I'm sure we would be willing to support that. As a new fund, I'm sure that there's going to be lots of call on it, but it's set up precisely for the reasons that you have come here today, that recreation groups such as yourself have a struggle with finding funding, as do most nonprofit organizations. So hopefully that's of some help. Thanks.
Thanks, Director Hillian, for sharing that information. We spent quite a bit of time on this item, and we have a number to go. So we should probably move the discussion along into what the preferred course of action is for the board. Not sure if someone wants to make a suggestion. I also saw Sarah Jane Howe you had your hand up. Did you?
It was just a quick question. I just wondered if the school district had ever been approached by UROC. I just know a number of the classrooms in our village use the forest as part of their educational experience. And I'm not sure if other schools in the district do, but just curious if that had ever been an avenue that was explored by you in the past.
We do a number of leadership programs with the school, after school programs as well. And we do a lot of work with the Cumberland Community School Society with after school programming there. We do ride, dig, ride days, and we do short guided rides with the school programs. And then something that I also didn't mention was we've been working a lot on adaptive programs, editing the trails to afford adaptive users. So it's separate from schools, but it's something that we didn't mention, that we've been getting allowing all users to be able to use the trails and get out into the forest.
I don't believe we have approached the school district specifically for funding as an acknowledgement of the service that we provide. And I guess learning and educational opportunities that the forest and trails enable. But it's an interesting one for us to maybe explore further. Although I will say most likely that the school district is using trails that are on Village of Cumberland lands, as opposed to on trails that we are actively managing specifically, which are generally the trails just above the Cumberland Community Forest.
Okay, thanks, Adam.
Okay, and over to Director Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So, I mean, in light of all that we've heard, and we know this is low carbon physical activity, this huge usage, and there's like 20% annual increase in users. This is the sort of recreation I think we want to encourage here in the Comox Valley. So I'm inclined to resolve that we commit a further $10,500 to bring it up to $50,000 for 2023. And perhaps hold off on anything beyond that and see if perhaps outreach to the school district, your outstanding request to the Village of Cumberland and the fund that Director Helena was referring to, see if any of those bear fruit before considering sort of further years funding. But yeah, a resolution to commit a further $10,500 for the 2023 year.
Okay, well, we'll dispense with receipts so we can get a motion on the floor.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was my bad. Anyone opposed to receipt? That's carried. Oh, I'm having issues with this interface. Please go ahead, Director Hardy.
Thanks. Just a quick question in regards to, we know how many people outside the Comox Valley come in and use the trails? And are we charging them a fee to come in and utilize those trails, I guess, at the end of the day?
We wouldn't be able to give you an exact number, but we know people from Campbell River come down and use the trails. We know people from Courtney, Comox, Cumberland, and the lower parts of the Comox Valley use the trails. We know people from Nanaimo come up and use the trails. And that's a trend within any trail network, that a catchment area will come and travel to those trails. In terms of numbers from during the tourism months, we always see a little bit of a spike in August, but that's the holiday months where people are coming to visit families and people in the Comox Valley. So we see numbers increasing, but generally the numbers are fairly sustained throughout the year. Obviously, the months where there's snow, we don't see many visitors then, but the trails are still used in running, hiking, and snowshoeing and skiing. To answer your question, we don't have exact numbers, but we do know that the majority of our users are Comox Valley, but we see people from out of town as well, especially with the events.
So out of town or not out of town, we can't charge user fees, given that these are trails that are on private lands. And so we encourage people to contribute to the trails with donations or by purchasing memberships. But regardless of whether they're directly contributing or not, we know that there's a significant economic impact when people do use the trails, specifically tourists. We look to the Sea to Sky economic impact assessment from a couple of years ago. The per day economic impact or spend was over $100 per day per individual user. So there is a significant trickle-down impact from active users, especially those from out of town.
Thank you. Director Hardy, did you have a subsequent or a motion?
Yeah, again, I'm just trying to wrap my head around. We've heard that there's over 200,000 bike users on the trails that we're talking about. We've heard that there's a significant economic benefit from the tourists that come to utilize the trails, but we don't know how many people are on those trails that are tourists. I'm just kind of curious as to, there seems to be some uncertainty there with regards to if it's 10 people that are coming to the Comox Valley, how much of a significant economic return is there to the Comox Valley?
We don't know that, and it would be something that I think I would encourage the economic development group in the Comox Valley to potentially look at to quantify the economic impact. But as a not-for-profit society, our focus is to create and preserve, develop an amazing amenity for this community, first and foremost.
Thanks for that. So we're trying to move ahead with proposed motion. Alternate Director Jolicoeur, I see you have your hand up. Are you wanting to make a motion? Director Cole Hamilton was in line to do so, and I let Director Hardy go ahead because he hadn't spoken yet. So did you?
I can wait.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So I'll just move that 10,500 in 2023's budget be allocated to UROC.
Does someone want to second the motion?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? Go ahead, Director Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm not very inclined to support this motion. Really appreciate that UROC is here today to answer some of the questions. I really find it challenging to be considering, given that we only have $12,000 left in this fund, some of the information that's been shared at the board more broadly that was not shared to this commission. So I do feel like there's some key information that hasn't formally been tabled for this consideration to this commission. Secondly, from a process perspective, I'm not quite clear what kind of communication the commission and the CVRD does more broadly to our partners in the community around this specific budget line, the event budget line. We're still a few months out from end of fiscal, and we just went through this beautiful strategic planning process where we've identified some key strategic priorities and groups and ways in which we want to expand some of the work that we do. And I do get curious in ways in which we can expand some of the supports we offer, given that the electoral area directors and that the UROC has already received funding from us this year. I would be curious to know, if I put our equity lens on, how this is equitable across all user groups and other nonprofits who are doing equally amazing work as UROC. And so for that, I'm not entirely sure I'll be supporting this motion. And I would like to hear from staff more broadly what the process is to inform the general public and user groups that this is something that they're able to come forward with a request for funding through this budget line.
Yeah, I'm going to hold off on having a broader discussion on the recreation grant right now, because we do need to carry on with the agenda and we are getting into the weeds. I certainly take all of your comments, and I think they're important in the context, but if we start elaborating on the various aspects of where this funding is, all the different places that we engage on this, we could spend the rest of the meeting time on this item. So I don't see any other lights on. I am gonna call the question unless somebody else wants to make a comment. All those in favor? And those opposed? We have 3. And sorry, I can't see you, Evan, but I think you're putting your hand up opposed. Is that?
And Director Grant has his hands up as well.
And Sarah Jane, were you in favor? Or?
I was in favor, yeah, thank you.
Just. Yeah, that's correct. The vote's weighted, so we're just going to take a moment to determine if it's carried or not. The motion is defeated. I will, I don't know if anyone else wants to make a subsequent motion or if we should move on. Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda. Oh, yeah.
We would like to do those first.
Okay.
Come back to 2 and 3.
Okay, if we could get a motion to vary the agenda to move items 3 and 4 so that we can, 4 and 5, so that we can address these items before we move on to the. Thank you. Anyone opposed? And so we'll vary the agenda, and now we're going to, thank you. All right, and over to staff.
Thank you. And Jennifer Zabinda will be presenting on this item number 4. Jennifer.
Thank you. Through the chair, so staff are here to seek approval to invite the Village of Cumberland to participate in the Comox Valley Track and Field Services function 601 to 603. Let's wait for Lisa. I'll just carry on and so the Comox Valley Track and Field Services provides funding for the maintenance and capital costs of the all-weather track and sports playing fields. Currently, the participants of this service are the City of Courtenay, Town of Comox, part of Bain Sound, Dem and Hornby Islands, Electoral Area A, Lazo North, Electoral Area B, and the Puntledge and Black Creek Electoral Area C. In 2023, the sports field strategy was completed with support by a number of interested citizens and local governments in the Comox Valley. The work was completed in collaboration with the City of Courtenay, the Town of Comox, the Village of Cumberland, 19 Wing, and Comox Valley Schools, as directed by the Rec Commission in November of 2021. The sports field strategy consists of a number of recommendations to improve existing fields, as well as inviting the Village of Cumberland into the service. This will increase collaboration and enhance overall management practices, and many future opportunities exist to increase and optimize collaboration in order to provide the best possible user experience and maximize efficiency across the sports field system. The benefits of the Village of Cumberland joining the service include participation in the service that many Cumberland residents benefit from through the use of regionally supported sports fields, such as the track and artificial turf field. Future considerations for improved amenities and contributions for local fields in Cumberland as part of the field study final report recommendations, and creating a more cohesive and allocation system and better overall consistency across the service, and the recognition that many groups are using fields across jurisdictional boundaries. Popping into the financial factors. Without Cumberland's inclusion in the Comox Valley Track and Field Services, for a home assessed at $800,000, the estimated residential tax impact would be the $5.66 based on the 2023 revised assessment roll. With Cumberland's inclusion in the Comox Valley Track and Field Service, so if Cumberland was part of the service in 2023, the estimated residential tax impact for a home assessed at $800,000 would have been $5.34. And the last slide, we are at the options. So option 1, that the Comox Valley Regional Recreation Commission approved that the Village of Cumberland be invited to participate in the Comox Valley Regional District Track and Field Service, function 601. And option 2, that the Comox Valley Recreation Commission does not approve that the Village of Cumberland be invited to participate in the Comox Valley Regional District Track and Field Service, function 601. And on this note, staff will recommend option 1. Should this direction be provided by the commission, a letter from the chair will be sent to the Village of Cumberland Council to formally request consideration of joining the service as a participant. So I'm going to leave that slide up for everyone. And on that note, staff are ready to take questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. And pass it over to Director Kettler.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Jennifer. And just wanted to let the board know that it was a surprise to myself and my council that we weren't already participants in this service. So yeah, thanks for that. We'll be discussing it at council.
Thanks, Director Kettler. Hearing that, maybe we'll just dispense with receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that's carried. Any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. I have a second. Jennifer, are you back on?
No, actually,
Oh.
Trish Morgan, our assistant senior manager of recreation services, will be presenting this report. So Trish, over to you.
Great, thank you. There's something going on with this. Oh, system isn't. We're just having issues with this interface today. I'm not quite sure why it doesn't want to cooperate. Oh, there we go. I don't know. But yeah. Please go ahead. Sorry about that.
All right, so I don't know if Lisa has the presentation or. We'll just go ahead in the interest of time. So as the commission knows, in the spring of 2023, the commission adopted a new strategic plan, and that plan identified in the immediate term that work should commence on planning the design of new artificial turf field. As Jennifer mentioned last night, we had a really fruitful conversation with a number of user groups around that design, and we had our lead consultant, RF Binney and Associates, there to lead that discussion. To give a little bit of background about why we're here though today is that back in 2023, 85,000 was included in the 2023 budget for planning and design. We went out to RFP this summer and only one proposal was received. There's only a small number of firms in BC that do this work. We were happy to receive a proposal from Binney because they do the lion's share of this kind of work. That proposal came in over budget, and after some further discussion with them, we were able to have the cost reduced, but we're still over budget. As a result of a surplus that's left from some funds from the sport field strategy, we have about $92,000 left in the budget, but that leaves us with a shortfall of about $54,000. If the budget is amended today to include additional funds in 601 and 603, then we will be able to complete all the design work in 2023. That will also lead us to a Class A cost estimate, which will give us more certainty going into the budget in 2024 on what it would cost to build the artificial turf field and the cricket pitch. And it would also help us to prepare for tendering earlier in 2024. And lastly, we likely will be coming back to you in November to talk about the possibility of a capital budget amendment. Our consultant has recommended that we tender the turf material sometime in 2023 before the end of 23. It would help to provide some cost certainty as we go into 2024. And depending on the number of projects that are undertaken by the suppliers of the turf material, it could mean that we still are able to finish that turf before the school season starts or early in the fall. Otherwise, we may be in the queue with a number of other projects. I think that's all.
Thanks for the report. Does anyone have any questions around the report? Director Jolicoeur, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, staff, for the report and the presentation. I guess my question is more of a procurement finance question for staff. We had only one applicant. I'm just wondering, as per our procurement policy, based on the amount that was originally budgeted, are we required, or is there any sort of best practice for us to put the RFP back out to see if we can get more competition from the sector on this?
I'll ask Lucy Macharik, our Chief Financial Officer, to provide a response there. Lucy.
Take you through the chair and to the directors. So from a procurement perspective, we put out this competition and we did only receive one proponent submitting. to the competition. And it's my understanding that this proponent is acceptable to us. It is a leader in the field. So we have moved forward to consider this bid. From a budget perspective, if it's something that we aren't feeling that we can do and move forward from a budget perspective, we can entertain process to go back out and see if we can get some further bids coming in from the market. However, we would also at this particular point in this process have to continue with this process because we have gone forward and opened the bids, made look to see what the proponent can do for us. So there may be some obligation for us to continue down this road with this proponent. It is always an option from a budget perspective to be able to go back out to the market. Just to reiterate again from the perspective of the department and whether we feel this is a proponent that actually can move forward and do the work for us, we are feeling confident in that matter.
Thanks for that
Thank you.
reassurance. It sounds like there's also some potential financial consequences of not proceeding with some of the work now as opposed to later in our budget cycle. So yeah, I can certainly understand where staff is coming from. I guess my question around that is, I mean, there have been some artificial turf fields that have been constructed or under construction on Vancouver Island. And I'm wondering if there's been any conversations between other projects as to whether or not that this was a constraint in other projects is getting additional interest when it came to going out to market. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at you.
Through the chair, I don't have that level of detail for you. It is a competition for design and engineering only at this point. And yes, I for sure, Trish does have some comments in this. I just wanted to let you know that I don't have detail on that right now, and we can gather you further detail, but the department does have comments.
Thank you.
Through the chair. So I did speak to another local government who is working through the process to replace an artificial turf field and design a new artificial turf field. And they were the ones who let us know that this firm does the lion's share of the work because it is very specific and it is also very technical. To Lucy's point, they are well suited for this, and this is just for the design and engineering. When it comes time for construction, we anticipate that we'll see many more bids for that.
Thanks for that. Seeing no other lights on, we'll dispense with receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? That's carried. And
Second.
Any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. So we'll move back to item 2, which is the Comox Valley Exhibition Grounds Fees and Charges bylaw. And pass it over to staff. That's Jennifer. Thank you.
Through the chair, staff are here today to provide an update on the Comox Valley Exhibition Grounds Fees and Charges bylaw and potential increases and changes. The Comox Valley Exhibition Grounds has seen an increase in overall usage since COVID, as well as changes in user demands. This includes a large increase in the number of users that use the space as a park, making the use of trails and open fields. The number of horses that live on site has increased. There are 14 horses now that live and pay self-board fees at the Stonehenge Barn, in addition to the horses at the Therapeutic Riding Barn. The number, size, and scope of events has increased from mostly horses and dog shows to numerous community events and workshops, much like Jeep-a-Palooza and horse trailer driving courses. There's been an increased interest in using the activity rooms without renting any of the other areas. So staff have configured 4 activity rooms down on the exhibition grounds between the various locations of the announcers booths and above the washroom on the exhibition grounds. And those are great spaces to be booked out. We've also had several requests for horse trailer storage and an increased interest in using other spaces such as the Stonehenge covered and open rings and the North Field. These changes have created opportunities to provide modifications and services at the exhibition grounds to better serve the users. This includes the removal and addition of services and facility rental options in the proposed exhibition grounds fees bylaw. The proposed annual increases in the fee bylaw will assist in offsetting some of the increasing operational and maintenance costs. And this includes things such as ground maintenance, contractor fees, building materials, wood shavings and rock, and ground cover supplies, water, power, and equipment. The further that the exhibition grounds expands, the more supplies are needed. Additional proposed services in the North Field. This space has not previously been available to book. It's ideal for small events that include outdoor vendors for additional space for horse shows and dog shows. The activity rooms, A, B, and C. These spaces were not previously used as activity rooms except for the occasional large event. There have been requests to use these spaces as standalone rental space for either meetings and preschool programs, and as well as other uses. We also use the space for our own CVRD recreation programs, summer day camps, and user group meetings. Stonehenge covered and open riding rings, previously only available for the use of the Stonehenge barn renters. They will now be available for other activities. And as an example, Music Fest and the Fall Fair could really expand and use some of those areas. Horse trailer storage, previously regular X Grounds users, unless they kept their horse on site, were not permitted to store their trailers there. This change opens up opportunities for other regular users. There's now the ability to rent the washroom building with and without shower access. This will help reduce vandalism when the showers are not required and locked for rentals and help cover the cost of the additional cleaning time. New event rental packages. Packages are bundled a bit differently to be more user-friendly for renters and for the staff administering and the bookings. The full packages now include washrooms with shower access, electricity and water, and up to 50 horse stalls and camping. For the other proposed changes, this includes reduced fee for monthly self-board stalls that do not have an attached paddock. Out of the 14 horses living at Stonehenge barn, 4 do not have the convenience of an attached paddock. Removal of some descriptions and service options, so zone classifications. These were found to often be confusing for the renters. We now use the specific field or ring name in the bylaw. Hourly field rental rates. These rental options had not been used and requested, so they were removed from the bylaw. Set up and take down or tear down discounts. This will help reduce the length of time the general public cannot access the grounds due to large events. Other agencies with similar services do not provide these options for the renters. Staff are recommending these changes to take place October 1st. So these are description and classification changes. There are no actual direct rate increases from the existing rates until January 1st of 2024. The Comox Valley Rec Commission had previously approved the 3% annual increase to start April 1st of 2024. However, staff are recommending an adjustment of that start date to January 1st, 2024, making it easier and clearer for renters and staff. If a fee changes mid-year, it shows as 2 rate options in our booking season, and that tends to cause some confusion for our renters. And the last thing on the fees and charges is staff are also recommending a 3% annual increase on the January 1st, 2025. These fees are on par with other agencies offering similar services, and a comprehensive review of current user fees charged by other communities with similar facilities located within our region was provided to the Comox Valley Rec Commission in February of 2022. And staff, that's all we have. Staff are ready for questions.
Thanks for whipping through that, Jennifer, as we run out of time here, but we do have enough time for a few questions if anyone has any on the report. We've got about 5 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll dispense with receipt. We'll just dispense with receipt, Evan, and then I'll let you ask your question if that's okay. Anyone opposed to receipt? That's carried. And go ahead, Director Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thanks. I guess the quick question for staff on that last slide, the second to last slide, I guess, on the self-stall decrease. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit around where that comes from and any potential revenue loss as a result of that?
Through the chair, is the question linked to the stalls that don't have paddocks?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So what staff have done is they've opened up more stalls in that barn. And so it's an increase in revenue. We've actually never utilized those stalls in the past. And we have found some horse boarders that are quite comfortable having their horse in a barn stall without a paddock. And sometimes horses need that downtime and that quiet time. And so we have a couple of hot to trot horses that like to have a stall without a paddock. And so that's increased revenue for the exhibition grounds.
Thanks.
Thanks for that. I had a question and I can't pull up the report, so I'm just going to have to go off memory. But my recollection is that taxation covers just a little under 90% of the operational costs of this particular service. I think that was mentioned in the staff report. And I'm curious if this adjustment to our fees and charges is meant to keep that ratio about the same, or if this is meant or is expected that more of the proportion of operational costs will be covered by our fees and charges due to these changes.
Through the chair, due to the amount of increases in the operation costs, this will just it'll stay the same as it has in past years. It won't offset all of the expenditures that are required.
So it's basically an update to keep up with rising operational costs.
Through the chair, correct.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. All right, seeing no other lights on, we'll vote on the recommendation. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? And that's carried. And do we have time to cover this is the question.
We do have our regional district board meeting starting at 4 o'clock. And
this is a rather big report.
I imagine this might generate some discussion. The commission could refer this matter to the next scheduled meeting, November 21st, which operationally doesn't affect the delivery of the service. So if the commission is interested, a referral would be in order.
Okay, so we don't have a motion on the floor because no one seconded receipt. If that is what I heard, does someone want to make a motion to refer this to the next meeting and then we can adjourn? Thank you. Anyone opposed? That's carried. Yeah, so thank you. Someone want to second that? Thanks. So no one is opposed to termination. Thank you, everyone.